All right, Canada, we're going to go ahead and move out to your next question. You're a battalion chief on duty. You're taking a break from some paperwork late at night, right around 12:30. I'm sorry, 11:30, 12 o'clock. You come outside. You notice a young female paramedic student and a station officer engaged in what could be construed as inappropriate behavior. They're startled when they see you, and they immediately move away from each other. What actions would you take in this situation?
Well, the first action I'm going to do is confront the officer and ask him, advise him that this person is not authorized to be here at the station, and to ask her to leave. And when he does so, to immediately come to my office to discuss the incident. At that point, when he does arrive at my office, I'm going to ask him with an open-ended question, explain to me what I just saw, and depending on what he answers to me is going to be my the alternatives that I'm going to get. Once he's asking her to leave, I'm going to go ahead and get the SOP out, and I'm going to review the SOPs so I can address him appropriately with those SOPs. What does he tell me when I ask him?
He doesn't want to talk without a union rep.
Okay, doesn't want to talk about a union rep. At this point, I'm going to show him the SOPs. I'm going to review the SOPs with him, advise him that he is in violation of multiple SOPs. At that point, I'm going to ask him to write me a memo. And once he does write me that memo, our process to recommend disciplinary action is it has to go through the ranks, the upper chain ranks. But at this point, I'm going to advise him that he has violated SOP. I'm going to explain to him the extent of the violation, that it provides a negative perception both internally and externally, and I expect him to not cross this line again in regards to this SOP. I'm also going to advise him that I'm going to recommend that he gets a verbal admonishment. I will initiate a verbal admonishment and pass it over to the operations chief. And at that point, I'm going to ask him to within a month. I've advised him that I do not want this to ever occur again. And I'm going to ask him within a month. I'm going to set up a plan where in a month we're going to reevaluate the situation, and I'm going to sit down with him again and discuss what he feels he could have done differently to approach this situation.
In summary,
I feel that by addressing it this way, this is I've in my information gathering, I also gathered, I understand this person's history, and depending on his history, I'm assuming that with my action plan that this is going to be a singular occurrence.
and I feel confident.
And I feel confident this will not occur again.
We need to close the question.
Yeah, I got to be.
All right, a couple things. You jumped right into action, and we had this talk earlier. And this is what when I deal with policemen and firemen all the time.
Yeah.
This is the way we're wired. We want to jump into action. In the assessment center world, we don't need to jump into action right away. We need to set the story up a little bit. You caught yourself, and you said, "I'm going to confront him. I'm going to take him to the office, and blah, blah, I'm going to ask him." And then, I'm going to pull the SOP, and you kind of caught yourself, and you tried to backtrack a little bit, which isn't going to hurt per se in an assessment because they don't know your system.
Right.
So they don't know that you're out of order.
Right.
As long as you do it, I think you'll be okay. A couple things. Do you have a habit of doing this?
Okay.
Be careful with that. Hands on the lap is where I like the hands to be. All right. Alex, not Battalion Chief Garces, not Firefighter Garces, not Fortis Training Coordinator 62 Campuses Garces. Alex, the person. Alex, the firefighter, takes pride in this profession. How do you feel about this?
About that incident?
Yeah, just me and you talking. How do you feel about that incident? That really occurred in one of your stations.
I have, as a battalion, I have a big problem with it. Does it happen all the time? Yeah. Off the record, too much. But I have a big problem with it.
Okay, so you don't like this?
No.
Okay, so Alex, the battalion chief, how does he feel about this?
Well, Alex, the battalion chief, doesn't like it either. And I don't like it because it sends a negative perception for our profession and our city and our department. And that I take to heart deeply.
That's the opening statement I'm looking for. That passion you have, that belief you have in how to be a professional, what your expectations are as a battalion chief, you jump right into the action.
Okay.
Remember, grab the assessors by the balls.
Yeah.
Okay. As a battalion chief and as a career professional firefighter, I find this to be a very troubling situation, a situation that I cannot tolerate under any circumstances, and a situation that if it were to get out of the fire department, it would put us in a very bad light. I'm going to take swift and aggressive action here. The first thing I'm going to do is identify what the issue is, and I'm going to stop the issue. We have an unauthorized visitor after hours. Our policy states that all visitors have to be out of the station by 1900 hours. I'm going to pull the officer aside in a non-confrontational manner and say, Captain, Lieutenant, whoever the person is, please have this person escorted out of the station and meet me in my office right away. As the person is doing that, I'm going to go back to my office and I'm going to review the SOPs, the policies and procedures reference our student writers. I'm going to look at the calendar to see if the student was scheduled to be here today. And I'm also going to look at the run logs to see if perhaps they've been tied up on runs and they just got back from a series of back-to-back calls, and see if there's a valid reason for the person to be here. I'm also going to review who this employee is. How much time has he been in rank? Does he have any disciplines, commendations? What are his training records? I'm going to make sure that I know this employee well, and I know that this employee has been trained on these policies, because all of our officers are trained on these policies in the organization. Now, I'm also going to print the SOP dealing with this, and I'm going to review what the contract, and I know what the contract says in terms of employee representation. And if this comes to this, I will make sure that I offer the employee the representation rights that the contract affords him. Now, I have a couple of options here. One of the options I can do is just pretend I didn't see anything, walk away, but that would be allowing this act and saying that this act is okay and compromising my integrity, compromising my ability to lead and carry forth this organization. Now, another thing I can do is immediately jump to conclusions, immediately start the disciplinary process, write a memo, and send it up the chain of command to the operations chief. And this, again, wouldn't be prudent because there might be a rational explanation for this. At this point, it doesn't look good for the employee, but as a good supervisor, I look at things with an open mind, and I give the employees the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. So I'm going to call the captain in, and I'm going to ask him in a non-confrontational manner, an open-ended question. I'm going to say, it's kind of late at night. I came out and I noticed something that appeared inappropriate to me. I'm going to ask the captain to briefly tell me what was going on, and then I'm going to gauge the response. And if the captain gives me a good response that, hey, we've been tied up on calls, she was assigned to my unit, she's very eager to learn, she's asking a lot of questions, and I just felt the need to coach, mentor, and guide her, I'm going to reiterate to the captain and say this is a good thing to do, but we have to do it within the policy. If the visitation hours are 1900, we have to adhere to that. And imagine if the lieutenants see us doing this, the firefighters see us doing this, then we can't hold them accountable. Now, if the captain comes to me and doesn't really have a good reason, appears to be hiding and evasive, and or even if he admits that this was an inappropriate situation, I'm going to let the captain know how disappointed I am, that my expectations are so much higher for my company officers. And I'm going to let him know that I will have to take action. As per our policy and procedures, I have to write a memo, and I'll be recommending a verbal admonishment as per our policy and procedures. If the person wants a union rep, even though it's a late hour, we will contact the union. We'll suspend the meeting at this time as per the Firefighter Bill of Rights until said time that the union representative gets here. I feel that with my communication skills, my employee development skills, the captain will understand what's going on, understand what my expectations are. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to continue monitoring this captain for at least the next 90 days. We're going to have weekly meetings. We're going to make sure that there was no other policy breaches, and I'm going to make sure this captain understands that every other member under their watch is looking up to them. And if I allow this to happen, I'm allowing it for all the stations to happen under my watch. So I'm going to review the policy and the calendar with all 3 of my stations without compromising this captain's identity, without having him look bad in front of his subordinates. And I'm going to do this with all 3 of my stations to make sure my expectations are clear. Now, in summary, this is a troubling situation, but it's something a battalion chief should be able to handle relatively easily by being truthful, consistent, and forthright with the policies and procedures. And I feel confident that with the skill sets I've discussed here today, that we'll get this employee to understand what the expectations are and never put the Coral Gables Fire Department in a negative light.
Sounds nice, but I'm gonna have to practice that.